I think because coaching is a skill. So the first thing you want to do is get a little bit of training. You
Mm.
don't have to go and take the most massive training. You don't have to do the master's equivalent of coach training, but get some training and then get coaching. Coach as many people as you can, get that skill, practice that skill, and then you start to feel like a coach. Do not build a website. Do not start an email list. Do not make a freebie. Do not do a whole bunch of stuff. Let's create a little mini program together. And then you go out and you deliver it. And you coach people and you watch them transform and you learn from that and you make a little bit of money. So now you're ready for the next step. So that's the place is get coaching, sell something small but useful and valuable, and then experience it.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 258 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Do you understand your own relationship to fear? Have there been moments in your life where you knew there was something you wanted to do and you kept not doing it because it just seemed too big? Do you know what I'm talking about? It could be something as fun and lighthearted as wanting to learn ballroom dancing, wanting to write a book, or changing careers that you know you just have this internal ache to flip, to change, to do, to move, and you're not doing it. Well, today's extraordinary guest, Candy Motzek, waited 10 years before she decided to actually move on her dream of being a coach. And she knew she was going to be a great coach. She calls coaching a calling for those of us who really love it. And even with that, she had to overcome fear and really deeply understand her own relationship to fear before she could begin this journey for herself. And now, as I bet you could get, she is an extraordinary coach for other humans who want to become coaches and are stalled by fear or they're not quite sure they can do it. And when you're listening today, I hope you really listen. The very end, I asked her, what is it that you needed to hear in order to make this move? If you could go back and tell yourself, what would it be? I want you to listen for her answer because one, it's a fantastic story. And two, I bet you're going through it. I know I've gone through it, and I think it'll really help you move through whatever decision you've been stalling on. Candy is an author, podcast host, and business coach for life coaches. She helps smart people start successful coaching businesses because she believes that coaching transforms lives and that being a coach is a calling. She helps her clients get unstuck and feel more confidence and clarity so that they can play bigger. They can sign on clients and create more meaningful success. She's a recovering corporate executive. Raise your hand if that's you. An engineer who combines practical strategy and mindset in her calming, unique approach. And that is really something you're going to hear today is her approach. She has one of those voices that you're just like, oh my gosh, can you just talk to me all the time? She has this soothing, incredibly calming presence about her. And you can feel what it would be like to be coached by her, especially the way that we talk to each other during this interview as two coaches who love our profession. All right. So without further ado, let's dive into our relationship with fear with Candy. Pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Candy, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I have so much fun talking to you that I think the audience is just going to love listening in today.
Oh, it's going to be great. And I'm so pleased to be here to talk to everybody.
It's such a joy, isn't it? We were just talking before we hit record, you guys, about how much we both love having a podcast and how much we love being able to do this with each other, but also for everybody listening. So just know that's the backdrop for today. But Candy, as our audience is just getting to know you and starting to understand more about what you do, right? And really, supporting other coaches who are just getting started. I'm such a huge fan of your work for obvious reasons. I wish you'd been around when I started 15 years ago. I was like, what do I do? How do I do this? I don't know. What? Who? What's a website? No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't that bad, but it felt like it. But of all the things that you could have chosen to do, you're incredibly smart. You have a lot going on. Why is this what you chose to do with all of your talents?
Yeah, it's a great question. And thank you, Sarah. And again, really appreciate being here. I have this thing. I think coaching is a calling.
Mm.
And it is something that I have always done, even prior to my coach training. So back in the old corporate days, I used to have an office. I mean, those were the days when people actually had offices. And it didn't matter who the individual was. It could be somebody who was a direct report or a peer, or sometimes the person from the C-suite. They would kind of wander over to my office and go, hey, just a minute. And then they would come in and they'd close the door and they'd sit down and we would talk. So that was coaching before I actually knew the official way to coach. So I
Mhm.
think it's a calling. And I think that there's something really magical for me anyway, in that one-on-one conversation with people. Like there is a connection and I see them
Mhm.
for, I don't know, it's like it's the essence of them and who they really are. And there's
Yes.
something super powerful in that. And so, yeah, that's why I do this.
Oh, I just got chills. It's so interesting. Yeah, I was having a coaching conversation this morning. Funny enough, that was exactly like that. I really appreciate what you just said.
Mm.
And I've never thought of coaching as a calling. It's just, I think those of us that love to coach is just sort of what you said. It naturally happened. I love that you call it a calling. I think I'm going to change it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It's actually
really
part
like
of my
that.
official little bio. I put it in there and
Yeah.
then I kind of thought, oh, that sounds kind of odd. But then I was like, but that's how I actually feel. Like it's
Mhm.
like when I'm on a call with a client, this is the work I'm meant to do in this world. And then it helps them do the work that they're meant to do in this world. Right. So that's
Yep.
the fun of it.
It is. It's
Yeah.
such a, there's such a ripple effect, right? When we stand up and say, no, this is actually what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
I think even just doing that and you calling it a calling allows other people to step into whatever they're here to do too. It's so great.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that
Yeah.
candy. It's so good. So I know that you have this, speaking of coaching, right? That you have this belief that coaches should have coaches. Say more about that and why you feel those of us who've been called to be coaches, that's that feeling. I think most of us really do feel that way. What is it about having another coach that you think is so important for those of us who are in this role?
Yeah, so there's a number of reasons, and I don't know the exact number, but I'll start and we'll see where we go. We'll see where we go. So the first thing for me is it's about integrity. Is that as a coach, we call our clients out to living that bigger life, and that means that they have to really walk in courage and really, put on their big girl panties and kind of do those things that they might be scared to do in service of who they are becoming. And so it's a little bit disingenuous of me to say, yeah, be a coach. It's the best thing ever. But then don't actually go and get your, handed to you by your coach, right?
Right.
I cannot tell you the number of
Mm.
times that my coach has looked at me and kind of kindly said, like, what? Right? Like, what
I'm
are
sorry,
you
rewind.
talking about?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's this thing about integrity. We walk the walk
Mhm.
and not just talk the talk. So that's the first thing. The other
Got it.
is because of that great saying, you cannot read the label of the jar when you are inside the jar. So
Mm.
you just don't
Mhm.
have that perspective on yourself that somebody else can have.
Yeah.
And they can see those patterns that you have where
Mhm.
you're not living to the thing that you said you wanted to do. So that's the second reason. And the third is you get your results faster when you
Every
have
time.
somebody that holds you as fully accountable. Like the coach training that I did, we have this thing called NCRW, naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. And when they hold you in that way, you rise to it. So those
Mm.
are my three big reasons.
I really love that. And I gotta just back up to number 1, which is we can't see our own stuff. The coaching industry isn't regulated, right?
No,
Like anyone can call themselves a coach. Here's my thing. This is what I do, right? And it's incredibly lucrative as a career when done well. And I know why people are so attracted to it, but there's no regulation. It the therapists must at all times have therapists. That is regulated so that they don't project onto their clients, right? Like
right.
that's a
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I wish that we were more regulated for reasons like that. One, because not everybody should be a coach or can just call themselves a coach tomorrow because they feel like it. But I actually consider it a responsibility. If I'm not making sure I'm living in a world where someone else sees me as whole and resourceful and creative, right? If I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
putting that in my own world, how can I ask you to put it in yours?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and listen, I'm 100% on the regulation thing too. I know it's a little
Yeah.
bit controversial, but it's a profession and
Yes.
professionals go by a code of ethics and a code of conduct,
Yes.
and they do continuous education. They're upgrading their skills. So like why would you resist having it be more regulated? But
Especially because those of us that really love the industry, we're always in like growing and learning. And I mean, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, the amount of books, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the courses, the people. Oh my goodness, right? I love it.
Yeah.
I love that part of it. And I think those of us who are attracted to this, really fall in that category too. And as you made the shift, let's just go back because you were talking about the importance of, you know, being outside the jar, right? In order to read the label. How did you make that transition from so many people coming into your office asking for advice, right? Which is, I think, what so many of us who would love to coach, we had that experience too. What
Hmm.
was your transition like from, oh, these guys are lining up at my office, but I actually want to do this as a profession? What did you do to change that? And how did you get started?
Yeah. So I love this question because now you're really outing me on my relationship with fear, which is
Oh,
perfect. Right.
wasn't my intention,
So,
but let's go. Mm.
so I had a coworker. His name was Brian. And he told me, Candy, I just took coach training, and it would be the best thing for you to do. Like, I can just so see it. And I looked at him and I smiled and I thought it was so great. And then I looked at the coach training and then I clicked away from that window. And I did that for 10 years before I took
No.
the step. Yep. Yep.
Oh my God, I have head to toe chills. 10 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. 10 years because it was never convenient. It was
Ah,
expensive. I
mhm,
didn't know how I would ever find the time to do it, right?
mm,
And so you have that desire, but then to keep putting that desire off. So, I mean, at the heart of it, I had all the great excuses, but really it was my ego and just my fears saying, ooh, don't rock the boat. Don't do anything too crazy, right?
right.
My career was great. I had a great career. I had a
Yeah.
great trajectory, one of these high potential leaders that they kept putting forward. Why didn't you apply for that promotion? We want to
Yes.
give it to you. But coaching was the thing I really wanted to do. So there, right?
Okay.
Like if you've got somebody who's listening to this and you've been like, I've been thinking about being a coach, but I've put it off for a year. Is it too late? No, 10 years was
Mm.
my number.
Hey, that is so good. Oh my God. I
Right?
feel I feel like somebody literally just went, "Oh my God, I can still do it." I swear to God, you just
Exactly.
helped somebody. Oh, wow. Oh, 10 years. I mean, okay, we have to go through this just a tiny bit because I think you're hitting on something really important. What was the dialogue in your head? One, I get that you closed the browser initially. What would
Mhm.
happen? What were your conversations like? What were you like? Oh God, you know what? I should just say here, they're going to promote me. It's enough money. It's fine. Health insurance, all the jazz, whatever, which you don't have to worry about in Canada, but we have to worry about in the States for those
Well,
listening.
I pay now myself
But
as well.
you do. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
That's
say more about what was going on in your head. Like, what does that sound like? Because I bet it's not that different from what somebody listening might be going through.
oh, for sure. Yeah. So it sounded like things like it's not the right time. It's my daughter is getting close to graduating and this and that's happening. It's not quite the right time because my relationship, long-term marriage was going through a stressful period.
Mhm.
I really need this job. I can't not earn that kind of money. We've got bills, we've got commitments. It's too scary.
Uh-huh.
Like, and it's not that I would say that in my head, but I would kind of like there's this tension that happens and it's like, oh, not me. Who do I think I am
Yes.
to make a
Ooh.
change? I'm
Ooh.
kind of old to be making a career change.
Okay.
Things are really good. Like I've got a nice little car, I've got a convertible, we've got a cabin, we travel, we have all the things, right?
Mm.
So I would just keep justifying it with that outside stuff that was happening in my life.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for the honesty. And the reason I love that so much is you can hear pennies drop, I swear. Like right now, you can hear people going, I just said that to myself this morning. It's not the right
Exactly.
time. This person needs me for this.
Right.
This needs my attention right now. As if we cannot do more than one thing at a time. And granted, we can do it at times. It might be a little bit less stressful. There might be a little bit more room. But I mean, how many things do we all do in a day? It's unbelievable, right? But we don't
Yeah.
usually prioritize the thing we really want.
And we get to start. Like that's the
I
thing,
love that.
right? Like it's not an all or nothing thing. We're not like all of a sudden we're going to have a coaching business and it's like, the curtain's going to open and we're coming out as this new being, like
Right.
Miss America, right?
Right.
But it's not like that. We can just take the training and we
Ah,
can just say, you know what? I'm going to have 3 clients. I can do 3 clients,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Or I could use these skills in another way in my life.
mhm.
Like it's not an all or nothing thing. And I know a lot of the people who are listening to your show are probably, these high achievers who like it feels like all or nothing. Like if I can't get to the C suite, I don't want it.
Yes,
Right.
very
Like,
much
right.
so. Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
And so it doesn't have to be. So that's part of our learning too. We can just do some of it.
Mm,
Right.
I love the gray, right? It's not,
Yeah.
we're not jumping from this to that. We're growing
Totally.
and we have
Yeah.
enough room to hold both. I love that. Oh God, I
Right.
have a feeling somebody literally just like signed up for something.
I
Okay.
hope
So
so.
they're like,
I
I'm
hope
starting
so.
right now. They're like, I'm going to start. I'm going to start. I'm going to start. Okay. So we are living at a time right now, right? As coaches, those of us being called, we love supporting people, holding this space that they are complete already and they're willing to step into that and start to explore with us. We're living at a time of AI, video AI, which makes me a little bit nauseous because now it looks like anybody can say anything anytime, right? But they didn't say it, but we can, right? Whole bunch of stuff going on. Not to mention
Right.
people are writing and writing and writing. I have a client who does her books now through Chat GPT. She's like,
Yes.
here were my numbers. Find the trends for me. I'm like, oh dear God. I mean, it's amazing on one hand, and it is troublesome for me personally. I'm like, this is great. It's wonderful and crazy. And I'm like in the middle of
Yeah.
both. I love it. And I'm like, this is weird. So, what do you think about AI and coaches and what's going on for all of us right now as we're really shifting? We're watching this shift happen.
Yeah. So AI and coaches are an interesting mix. So what I see is I see a lot of coaches freaking out and then quitting because AI
Really?
is going to take my business, right? Like hands flying in the air like that.
Wow. Okay.
So there's lots of people doing that. Lots of people doing, like you were saying, your friends doing, like taking AI and then using it as a tool and using it even more. The place that I think is really interesting is that I get to decide how to use AI, right? So, like, I decide,
Yeah.
I choose how it's going to work for me. And I can get curious about it and think, how could it make my business better?
Mm-hmm.
How could I partner with it? Like, I don't want to go down the whole ethical piece because there's an entire, like, there's an ethical situation here that is unprecedented
Yes.
and nobody knows what to do. We'll just say that. But I can stand in my own integrity, my own ethics, and say it's a tool. So I use it all the time. I use it to support me in pulling together notes for an idea, for sketching out an email that I might want to write, for ideas on solo podcast episodes. I use it all the time. Then the thing that I think is the most important is where I think coaches really benefit is that I could easily create a chat that I download my brain into, and somebody could come and get coaching by Candy, tell me what to do in this situation, and AI would give you the response. Like I know that I can do that.
Mm,
Where I think the coaching can't be touched yet, not to say never, is in the connection,
I agree.
right? Like if you are on a call or side by side with a client, AI can think a heck of a lot faster and more intelligently than I can, but they can't feel with the same heart that I feel.
There's no
And
way.
so
Yeah.
that's the value of that's the, use AI where it's appropriate, and then know that you cannot, at this point anyway, replace that human connection of hearing that individual and seeing them, giving
Mm-hmm.
them that validation that they matter, that what they're doing is important, that you see them, that you hear them, that you care about them. AI doesn't do that. So that's my
Yeah,
thoughts.
agreed. I totally agree. I mean, it's so interesting you said people are worried about it. It never even occurred to me to be worried about it
Hmm.
because of what you just said. I was like, you can't replace that. There's no way. The facial expressions, the way that we express ourselves, watching for a pattern. That's one of my favorite things about being a coach is, 4 months into working with somebody, you can be like, do you remember 3 months ago when this happened and you did the same thing? And they're like, "Oh, no, I totally forgot." Right. Those
Yeah.
moments, I don't know how you would ever outsource that. That has to be part of our human connection. And I really appreciate what you said about it being a tool. It's something
Yeah.
that comes up, like we were just talking about in the Abundance Academy too, where it's just like, but how much do I use it? And then what are the copyright, all the ethical issues you brought up, right? There's all of that. And then what if someone else just steals it? And like, but is it stolen? Because it's this big mess of stuff. And my 2 cents is what you said. We all can use it the way that we need to use it properly. And I can always tell when it's AI. In 2
Mhm.
seconds, I can tell when something came out of a prompt.
My chat only has 5 emojis that they use. So rocket ship,
That's
star,
hilarious. What?
right?
What's
Fire.
the rocket ship? What is that?
I even asked it one time. I asked my version to give me its name. What do you want me to call you? Right. So that
Yeah,
was a little bit of a discussion.
that's
But
hilarious.
I said, why do you give me this rocket ship? And it said it's because it shows upward fast movement and momentum. And I was like, yeah, okay, fine. A
All
little
right.
bit, you know,
I
yeah.
love that. I love that.
It's a little bit patriarchal if you ask me, but we don't have to go
You
there.
said it. You said it first. I thought it. You said it. I love us. Yeah.
Yes.
And the other thing
Yeah.
too that I just hate is the word embark. I can tell
Yeah.
no one uses that word, but boy, does AI love the word embark. I'm like,
There
I
is
don't
a
know
place. There
what
is a place where they use the word embark. It's when you're going on a cruise ship.
it's it.
It's embarkation,
But yeah,
right?
but nobody we don't say that. Like, let's embark on a journey together. I'm like, who's hot? What? And people are throwing it up in like socials. And I'm like, dudes, no.
Yeah.
Anyway, that just cracks me up. I'm so glad we're talking about this because it really got there have been so many opportunities in our lifetime, right? To just watch society change and expand and grow. Boy, are we in it. My goodness.
Yeah.
This is
And
really
we
one of
chose to
those.
be here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say just to share too, I mean, the way we use it, the way my team and I use it is, sometimes, we're super slammed in the schedule and I'll be like, get me prompts for 5 emails that say this, right? And they'll kick that out for me. And of course, I really erase them and rewrite them, but it's something to get me started. I find at least if there's words on the page, I can get going. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know if
I
that
really
resonates with
like
you at
that.
all. Yeah, you like
Yeah,
that
I
too.
really like
Yeah.
that. And I do something similar, but what's one thing that's really funny is that you'll say, give me some prompts or, sketch out. I want to kind of talk about this, blah, 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 blah. Sketch it out for me, give me some ideas, and it'll give you something. And then you go back to me and say, is that the best you can do?
Oh,
No,
that's
actually, we can
hilarious.
improve it. It's so funny. Why didn't you give me the best version in the first place? Right?
Boy, this is awesome. Like this is a serious relationship. Like,
Yeah.
excuse me. Excuse me. I think we can do better than that. That's hilarious. Oh my God. Let's all, oh, I'm going to try that later today. That's so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. So now we've got AI out of the way because everybody's freaking out about that. We've got
Mhm.
your story, how you got started, why coaches need coaches, the ethics behind that. If someone was getting started right now, like they're listening in, Candy, and they're like, okay, this coaching thing, I'm kind of like her. It's been bugging me for a while, maybe 15 years, not 10 years, maybe 3 months, whatever, right? There is kind of like it's been niggling at me. What do you recommend? You said anybody can get started at any time. Is it a course? Is it a book? Should they be looking at how much they want to make? What do you like to coach people to do when they're just getting started?
Yeah. So I think because coaching is a skill, so the first thing you want to do is get a little bit of training. You
Mm.
don't have to go and take the most massive training. You don't have to do the master's equivalent of coach training, but get some training and then get coaching. Coach as many people as you can, get that skill, practice that skill, and then you start to feel like a coach. So that's the
Mm.
first little bit that I recommend people do. And I also really love to recommend, like for my clients who are brand new coaches, those ones, I say, let's get you coaching. Do not build a website. Do not start an email list. Do not make a freebie. Do not do a whole bunch of stuff. Let's create a little mini program together. And then you go out and you deliver it and you coach people and you watch them transform and you learn from that and you make a little bit of money. So now you're ready for the next step. So that's the place is get coaching, sell something small but useful and valuable, and then experience it, you know?
Love it.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Ah, you are a woman after my own heart. Not that we didn't know that. I think we knew
Right.
that. But still, I love your answers to everything
Yeah.
today. It's been so good. If you could go back to, I'm going to say previous Candy, right? If you go back in
Mm.
those 10 years, what do you think you needed to hear?
I don't know. I'm kind of resolved with the idea that I delayed for 10 years. Like I feel at peace about that.
Mhm.
For me, the demonstration is in my relationship with fear and how much fear still, but ruled my life, but it still does. And so I needed that internal understanding that no matter what was going to happen, I was going to be scared anyway. And so that I could just start. right? So the thing that actually happened that triggered me to go and take the training is I did an amazing cruise. And we left from Santiago, Chile, and we were on the ship for a long time. And finally, we went, and I was terrified to round Cape Horn, right?
Okay.
So Cape Horn, we went down to Antarctica eventually, but Cape Horn is legendary, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so crazy. I need my long johns, I need my big down jacket, my hat, and big puffy mitts and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to be so rough, and I just don't know. Like, I was really scared, right? Okay, so Cape Horn, tens of thousands of people have perished there. More than 800 ships have crashed there because of the way the weather comes together. There's
Mm,
tons of rocks, there's tons of waves. It's pretty
mm.
nasty. So the day dawns, and the captain comes on the blower and says, listen, it's a pretty nice day out there. We're opening up the front of the ship. So, where they would normally have all the ropes and the equipment,
Oh my
we've cleaned
gosh.
it up and we're opening the front of the ship. So, you could go out there and you could watch while we go around the Cape. Okay. So, it was
Oh my gosh.
sunny. It was about 70 degrees. I
Wow.
was wearing a t-shirt holding my espresso,
Oh my God.
and I was looking at it, and it was gorgeous, and it was almost flat calm. And so you go around one way and it's a big deal, right? And then the captain comes on and says, I've never seen it like this. It's amazing. We're going to do it again. So we
Oh my
turned
gosh.
around and we went around the other way. So the reason that it changed is I was like, oh my gosh, I was so scared about this.
Mm, mm.
And what did I do? I stood there in my t-shirt with an espresso on the front of the ship, right? Like what was I
So good.
scared of, right? So that thing of fear, it was like, okay, so obviously we can do some other things too. So it was in this relationship with fear that
Mm.
the change happened. I came back to Vancouver, where I live, Vancouver, Canada, and by that weekend, miraculously, a space opened up in the training that I wanted to do. 2 days' notice, I was in. That was it. Because I had
Wow.
been telling myself this story
Mm,
about how scary it was going to be.
mm.
Yeah, right. So,
That is such a good story. I'm like a little
right?
bit stunned right now. I'm like, dang. Like that,
Yeah,
isn't that the epitome of us like trying to figure stuff out? It's like there's a
yeah,
meme on the internet of a little kid holding onto a rope, screaming and kicking, and then he realizes he can stand up
yeah,
in the
yeah.
water. Right. Like,
It's so
that's,
funny
I was like,
and
oh, that's
crying.
us. Yeah. He's like crying, screaming, yelling, kicking in the water. And someone's like, just stand up, dude. He's like, oh.
Yeah.
I was like,
Oh,
that is so
a
us.
little sheepish, you know?
I was like, oh, my bad. Right. But I mean, what a great story from like terror. And like, look, a lot of people have failed on this journey before.
Oh my gosh,
All of
yeah,
that stuff is real.
yeah,
Right. I
yeah.
mean, I always say to people who are living off their business, I'm like, that is the top 5% of business owners who can live off their business. That's a big deal. Right.
Yes,
And so you can
exactly.
hear stats like that and freak out, or you can put on your t-shirt, drink your espresso, and declare that you will be part of the 5%. I think there's
Yeah,
scary both
totally.
ways, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
that's so
anyway.
good. So good. Well, Candy, this has been so lovely. I just absolutely love spending time with you. And as we're wrapping up here, I do know that you have a free gift for all of the girlfriends who are listening in today. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes. So you can get this free gift at candies with an S, freegift.com, or you can go to my website at stepintosuccessnow.com and just navigate to the free tab. So on there is a resource library. We've got right now, there's about 10 different freebies on there that we're reworking. We've got quizzes, we've got 5-day challenges, we've got PDFs, we've got checklists, all kinds of stuff there. So anytime that you feel like you need a little bit of help
Mm.
with your business, choosing your niche, getting started, or maybe doing a little bit of journaling and thought work, go and check it out. I'm sure there's something there to help you out.
Oh, I love that. And I mean, is this so amazing that right now we can just offer that many resources to people?
I
It's
know.
so cool,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. It's so much fun. I
I love
remember
it.
when I used to think that you'd have one lead magnet, and I'm like, no, this is fun. Let's do more. Right.
I have something else I want to share. I know there's so many wonderful things out there. I know we're lucky. We're lucky that we get to do this.
Exactly.
And oh, such a good time. But I love that you've put it all together for people to just go look at and find and start to study. It's so good because, like you say, just get started, right? I
Yes,
love it.
exactly. Yeah.
I love it. All right. So, Candy, if someone's listening and they're like, I need some more candy in my life, where can people go to hang out with you?
Okay. Easiest place is my podcast. It's called She Coaches Coaches. It's on all the players. That's the easiest way to come and listen to a little bit more about what I say. And Sarah's a guest on there. So come check out that episode as well. You're going to hear a different conversation, but still the two of us talking about all kinds of coaching stuff.
So fun. We had the best time, you guys. It was like,
We
we were like, I think we forgot that the recording was on half the time because we were just having such a good time. Anyway, all right, Candy, thank you so much for spending time with all the girlfriends today. We so appreciate you. And thank you for the work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you so much for having me.